views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
And welcome to Vote 2018, our special edition of In the District. Coming up, we've got candidates running for the open seat in the 80th Assembly District. The district includes the neighborhoods of Allerton, Bedford Park, Morris Park, Mosholu Parkway, Norwood, Pelham Gardens, Pelham Parkway, and Van Ness. The seat was vacated by Mark Jonai in January, who was elected to serve in the City Council. Now, we've invited all the candidates on the ballot for a special election to participate in this program. I'm Daren Jaime, introducing you to the candidates running for State Assembly District 80 here on In the District. And joining us now is Gene DeFrancis, Republican candidate for the 80th Assembly District, and we welcome you to the show.
Darren, good to see you.
Good to have you. All is well?
It's very good.
Good.
It's very good, yeah.
How's it going? I mean, you go now and you're the director of the Allerton International Merchants Association, and you throw your hat into the ring. Talk about why.
Why? Basically, because the community asked me to. I had no political ambition. My sole ambition was to get the community back on track, to rebuild it. You know the history from when we spoke last, to tell the viewers. Allerton was basically left alone, abandoned. No political outside influence was coming in. There was no leadership, basically. And we formed the Merchants Association, and we gave the community a voice. And that kind of went around. The community respected it. They liked what we did. We weren't ambitious for power or looking to work our way up. And they basically called us and said, Gene, we need another voice in this election. So I listened, and then more calls were coming in, and I said, we'll give it a shot. And it was surprisingly easier than I expected. You know, being a community activist, you work in different channels, and you get to meet new people. You get to hear different stories. It's actually been very enlightening. It's been very positive. And I'm excited about it.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the campaign. As we talk right now, a lot of issues are at the forefront. Talk to me about how you want to address the issue of education, because I know education is something that you would want to see dealt with.
It's in the forefront, and I think we're wasting money in other areas when we need to be focusing specifically on education. I think that's the crux and the core of everything. K through 8, and then when we go into high school, it's a crying shame we don't have after-school programs for our kids. One of our public schools, they don't have an adequate library, and we're spending money on various wedge issues and other just needless activities, to be honest. I want to put the focus in the core, bring the community back together. Also, I want to bring back zone schooling. When we went to school, we knew our next door neighbor because we went to school with our next door neighbor. Every single public school should be the same. It should be equal. And neighbors should get to know neighbors. They should go to school together. This way, when they come home, they play together. And when you're walking down, it's safer as well, because you're going down the block, you know auntie, you know uncle, you know your next door neighbor. Everybody is rebuilding the community, and we're talking, and that's a very key issue, because sometimes we overcomplicate our problems, but if we just bring it all back to the local and just talk to each other and work together and live together and go to school together, then we start solving our problems together. Your next door neighbor needs a job, you're looking out for him. Your high school classmate needs a favor or something, you know who to call. It'll also help the congestion, if we go back to zone schooling, on the MTA. We're busing our kids across our county. It's ridiculous. When you could just walk 2 blocks away, we have to go to a better school because it's in a different district, or for whatever various reason. Every public school should get the proper funding, the proper care, the proper training for our educators. Also, another thing we should look at is, instead of hiring more security guards, we should hire more school counselors to help our kids educate, nurture them, grow them to the next level, rather than just leave them alone. You know, we could talk candidly. We know a lot of our homes, a lot of our children are coming from broken homes, single parents. They need that extra help. A security guard's not going to solve that, no matter how talented and professional that they are. We need counselors to have a controlled amount of students, not overworked with over cases, but a controlled amount, so that they can help these kids get onto the next level and be prepared for the real world.
Let me move from public schools to public housing.
Okay.
Because one of the things you want to talk about is NYCHA, New York City Housing Authority, and you're calling for major reform.
Yeah, I'm calling for the state to take over NYCHA. First of all, I have a really interesting idea with this that no one's going to talk about, no one's going to touch because, well, to some it's controversial, but I think it's a great idea. After 10 years, if you're living in a NYCHA property, why don't they give you that property? Why can't you own that unit? Now, if you want to sell that unit back to the state, back to another person, now you have a nice little nutshell of money that you can use, maybe buy a house, start a business. You're not talking an elaborate amount of money, but you could pay back the government for the subsidies that you received just to get you back on track. Because Bronxites, we're proud people. We don't want a handout. We want a hand up. We just want an equal playing field, and the Bronx isn't getting an equal playing field. And with this theory, with this platform, we can now fund a better maintenance program and take care of the greenery in the housing projects. And we could also take care of the lead problem. Some of these buildings, they need to come down. They need to be rebuilt. It's not adequate. It's not suitable for living condition. And the government, they have no right taking over a property or doing a business and then trying to regulate other buildings on how to operate if they're not doing an adequate job taking care of our people.
How would you speak to the part that you say about abolishing government programs to pretty much price out people?
So I'm not necessarily looking to abolish them. Mm-hmm. I think I'm looking to get everybody employed and working. They still need a safety net, but we need to work our way up to independence, not government dependence. We need to get everybody basically a solid foundation so they can take care of themselves.
Speak to us about healthcare, because healthcare is also another thing that you're pretty much interested in, and you talked about introducing the community compassion bill.
Yeah. So what I actually realized in my research starting up into is that there's already a bill out there that's being ignored. It's A3666. When you're dealing with the mental health crisis, or in this specific bill, the opioid crisis, people are not in the proper state of mind to say, I need help. I have family members that are dealing with this situation. Mm-hmm. It's a serious situation, and they're not going to admit that they have a problem. So what this bill does is it gives the family, the loved ones, permission to get them the proper treatment. Now, some will say they're not ready for treatment. If they're not ready for treatment, they're going to die. We have a serious overdose situation in the Bronx that needs to be quelched. Mm-hmm. And we can go out to any streets. Our families are scared to walk them because there's a man or a woman overdosed in the parks, right in our district. I mean, it's not a national issue. It's right here in the heart of our district, and it needs to be handled, in my opinion, with more compassion. Mm-hmm. It's not government dictating and say, oh, we're going to throw you in. This has to be a compassionate issue where we need to intervene to help these people that are not going to seek help for themselves.
Let me move a little bit to small business, because I know small business is, of course, the lifeblood, and it's something that's passionate to your heart. How do you address the issue of small businesses if elected?
Again, government's not going to solve this. This needs to come back to the community. And we can get a little grant and funding and things like that, but in the end, we need to work together. So it goes back to the education. We need to teach our students how to be entrepreneurs, not manufacturer workers. We need to teach them how to be independent. What I started with the Merchants Association is we created an incubator project, a local incubator project, where you have one office or facility where you have many different businesses working together to pay that rent. Now, when they're building up the clientele and they're building up their resources, then they can branch out into another. Now we have more variety in the district, and the district flourishes. Families are coming out. They're walking door to door, window shopping, getting to meet their neighbors because they're outside again, talking to each other, talking to the merchants. There's more variety. It's more vibrant, and it's local. We don't have to have outsiders coming in and dictating what's best for us, putting in another box store. It's the man that lives on your avenue has now a store on the avenue, and that's not a bad thing. And everybody could, of course, come in and open up business, but we need to bring it back to the local basis. Mm-hmm. And an incubator project is something simple, it's easy, and we need to offer grants, not so much on what a person's sex is or ethnicity, to be honest, but what variety that they have to offer, because we can't keep having the same stores. It's cutting into profits of the small businesses that are already there. We have to make sure everybody has an equal playing field, everybody has a chance to start a business, and everybody has something different to bring to the table, more variety.
I want to get, before we get out, we only have less than a minute. I want to ask you a question. People watching right now, why do you vote for Gene DeFrancis?
Gene DeFrancis is a veteran of the United States Navy, someone that was willing to lay their life for the freedom of this country, is someone that's going to serve you with honor, courage, and commitment. I'm born and raised in this community, 37 years. I didn't run from this community when the times were tough. I stayed. I went to PS 89, MS 135, Columbus High School, and then I left for the Navy and I started my own business. I'm a hard worker. We formed the Merchants Association. We did so much with so very little, and volunteers. And I just want you to sit back, for those that know me, think about what we could do if we were in office with all the things that we have done, just as simple community activists.
All right. Well, Gene DeFrancis, thank you for coming.
Daren, always a pleasure. Thank you very much.
And thank you for your service to the country.
Thank you, sir.
All right, listen, thank you for joining us. We'll be right back with more right after this. And welcome back. Joining us now is Natalia Fernandes, Democratic candidate for the 80th Assembly District. And good to have you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good to have you. So,
thank you.
Talk to us a little bit about this. You're now in the race. People ask the question, why?
Why? Because I love this district. I started my career in public service soon after college. That's when I first began volunteering in political races, the first with the then Assembly member Mark Jonai. And it just struck my heart, really, being able to help the community do something actual, being able to bring the funds and seeing the differences possible. So in my time from 2012 to now, I've experienced a lot, especially in the district. Now, then going up to Governor Cuomo's office, I was appointed Bronx representative a year ago now. The possibilities are endless, and being, I want to say, a lucky one to be in this realm, having worked around it. It's just something that I felt I needed to do for the girls behind me, the ladies in front of me, and everyone around me.
Talk to me a little bit about the district as a whole. A lot of issues that you can center on, but one of those is the quality of life. How would you address the quality of life issues in the district?
Quality of life, there's always little bits that are struggling. I think my district is a great district. We have great relationships with our precinct and our community organizations that talk to one another and basically keep everyone in the loop of any major concerns. But of course, there are some issues that still are prolonging, such as crime rates, small or big. The opioid epidemic has reached up to my district, and also just keeping businesses thriving. My district is fortunate to have a few merchant avenues, and I want to see them flourish and still growing to provide for their constituents and their customers.
So let's move to the topic of education. Obviously a big concern for you. How do you view the education system, and what would you do if elected in the area of education?
Education, I want to give more to our public schools. Right now, in my district and in the Bronx, our public schools are not in a good place. They're lacking in funding, and that funding is for supplies for teachers, after-school programs, utilities, such as technology and even the air conditioning. And our public schools shouldn't be in the conditions. While we have our charter schools that are great, and that's a wonderful option, for those that can't get there, I want to make sure our public schools are just as good. So a priority that I have is to make sure that, whether through my capital funding or discretionary funding, I want to give back to our public schools to make sure that every child has a good opportunity and a good education.
Outside of education, what would you say is the next biggest thing that you want to see tackled?
The next biggest thing, healthcare. It's really unfortunate and sad that the administration right now is trying to take that away from every citizen and person in this United States and this state, New York. So I want to be an advocate to make sure that elderly, children, any individual is able to get some type of health care to address their their health, their concerns, whatever issue may be, because it's not fair that that has to be a choice in a daily life, whether I'm going to take care of myself or I'm going to, be able to feed myself.
I want to talk about health, not just in addition to healthcare, but you talk about transportation options. You talk about one of the things you want to do is strengthen those options. Can you explain?
Transportation, as we know, is another struggling topic in New York, New York City specifically. The MTA is not in good conditions right now. I have been leaning towards the support of congestive pricing because there just needs to be a new revenue. New York State, we know where the money is going right now, and right now there is not enough or anything that we can grab from to be able to fund the needs of the MTA. So, and also our bus systems, we need to come up with better scheduling, maybe direct lines to make sure these bus systems are on time, because too many New Yorkers are getting affected with late schedules and threats to their jobs. And yeah, we just want to make sure that they're okay.
So you are in favor of congestive pricing?
In a sense, yes. Not too much, because obviously another toll is never good. And a price increase is not good on us. Well, because our wages are not up to the level that the governor has promised, the 15% wage. It's hard to take on another tax, but little by little, $1 or $2 here and there throughout a course of years, I think would make a difference to be able to bring funds to then address just the transportation issues.
Well, one issue that's taxing our community right now is the opioid drug use, and we know that a lot of people are being affected by it, particularly in smaller communities, rural communities. Everybody seems to be affected by this. How do you address this? What would you see? What would you like to see done?
I want to see more recovery centers, because there needs to be a draw from the community to these centers. The state has been making strides in providing funding for new therapy centers, recovery centers, to relieve of this addiction, because it is an addiction that is unfortunately, taking over many in the Bronx. And with that comes education. We want to be able to attack the problem before it gets to a problem. So I would like to see some curriculum added into our education system to teach these kids of the threats of this, and hopefully that goes to their parents and family members, and through family support and friends and neighbors, they can come to that realization that I need the help, and then the help is there.
For people who don't know Natalia Fernandes, who is she?
Natalia Fernandes is a lover of the Bronx. I was not born here, but my family has instilled themselves. My family is from Cuba and Colombia. My father came here at a young age from Cuba, my mother from Colombia, and their home started in the Bronx. My family did start in the Bronx. I'm one of 6, so with the growing family, unfortunately, we couldn't fit in the apartment anymore. But the district itself has stayed with me. That's where I spent my summers, that's where I spent my weekends, and someplace I really just love to now call home. And again, this was where I began my career in public service, and I want to be able to continue that, especially for this neighborhood.
And you served as Mark Jonah as Chief of Staff. What lessons have you learned, and what would you apply going forward?
Lessons. Every voice matters. Every single voice. When I was the Chief of Staff, I was that person that if you couldn't speak to Mark, if you couldn't speak to anybody else, you spoke to me. So in really listening to every person from every corner of the district, every neighborhood, I've grown in understanding of what the neighborhoods need. Everybody matters. Every concern is worth looking into. Every need is worth trying to provide for, because, again, this is our quality of life. We want to make sure that people are living well, that they're happy, that they feel safe, that they feel, what's the word?
Appreciated.
Appreciated, yes, appreciated.
And so we want to make sure that people know about you. So if people want to find out more about how to get in touch, how to get connected with your campaign, what do they do?
Well, you can go online. Fernandes2018.com is my website. I'm also on Facebook and Twitter. My Twitter handle is Fernandes4NY, and that's a 4, the number 4. And my Facebook page, Natalia Fernandes for State Assembly. You can see what I'm doing daily here in the district. And on my website also has additional platforms that I have on there, and what I hope to address when I enter the Assembly.
Before I let you go, let me ask you this question. You've been out on the campaign trail for a minute. Election time is right around the corner, but what have you been hearing from people?
I've been hearing great things. It was really the community that encouraged me to take this step. I always knew I wanted to stay in the public service sector, whether staying with the governor or moving on to another not-for-profit that serves a community in need. And when Mark Joe and I had went on to the city council, that was really the open door to say you can do this or you can stay where you are. And my community did reach out to me, you know, kind of put the seed in my head, you can do this. And I knew I can, but of course there was a little bit of reservation. As a woman, you always have reservations to take that step forward. But in this time, in this day, me as a Latina and a woman, I felt the Bronx needed more representation from somebody active as I am, from somebody with the knowledge and experience that I have, and someone who cares as I do.
Natalia Fernandes, she is running for the 80th Assembly District, Democratic candidate. Thank you so much for coming and sharing with us in the district.
Thank you.
All righty, listen. We want to thank you for joining us. We want you to stay with us. We've got more coming up right after this. And thank you for joining us. For more information about this election and more, follow us at BronxNet TV. Now, for more information about voting locations, you can visit the State Board of Elections at elections.ny.gov. And remember, head out to the polls on April 24th, making your voice heard. For all of us here on the set of In the District, I'm Daren Jaime. Thanks for watching.